Hello there, wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of The Finnovator with me, Stuart Bell, business coach, founder of our Dairy Coaching Consulting and creator of the Leverage Advice Firm program. And in this episode, I wanted to introduce you to someone I've known for quite a while and just getting the opportunity to sit down with Sacha Burchgart, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, of Burcheart Financial to talk about her model. It was something I've been really looking forward to, and to be frank, this was one of my favorite masterclasses that I've had the opportunity to be part of for the last 12 months. What made this really, enjoyable and insightful and, just full of insights is the fact that Sacha's built a business which is based on doing things a certain way and believing in a certain way of giving advice. In essence, as you're going to hear in the discussion, Sacha's made this strategy paper, if you want to call it that, the cornerstone of her client engagement piece. In a sense, as she explains in the session, she sits down with clients, she understands all the things they want them to do, and then without even making too much judgment, she will go away and she will put some modeling around it, she'll put some numbers, and she will give people the opportunity as part of that process to see the likely outcomes of their decisions and essentially make decisions for themselves about that process. And the way she's built it, the way she approaches modeling, the way she approaches the whole process is such that, as she explained, people pay more for the strategy modeling than they do for the advice documents, for the essay or anything. We also talked at length about the journey she's gone on with technology, which I think is really important, because when you're trying to enable this kind of business model in your practice, then the tools that you have to support you are so important. And she talks about the tools she's used, the evolution she's made, and even some of the dead ends she's gone down. And we also talked about what I find is a common issue right now, which is if you've got a way of delivering advice and it tends to be time intensive or it takes a lot to get it done. She talks a bit about the journey that she's going on in order to scale this and a whole bunch of other things. This is one where we dived deep into certain areas. We really got practical. We really unpacked some of the deeper elements of your business. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed sort of running it with her or having the conversation. So without any further delay, I'm going to hand over to Sacha and let's dive into high insight with Sacha from Burcheart Financial. Before we kick in, let me give you a bit of a sort of introduction to Sacha in case you don't know. Sacha is the founder of Burcheart Financial Planning, and she leads a really, really good team. We were just talking about some of the things they've been doing recently. That kind of takes an approach to, I guess her proposition is very much around sort of advice as being about lifestyle and happiness and that sort of thing. She's also an award-winning advisor, having won the Finnovation Advisor in Practice of the Year in 2016. She was a finalist for the Advisor of the Year in 2022. She won, I think, the finalist in the NAB Women in Finance Awards and the AFA Female Excellence in Advice Awards in 2017. Not to mention the fact I know she's deeply involved in the FINIA. She's also, she's got a culinary talent and an eye for design that I personally am very jealous of. And she also lives in one of Sydney's hottest up-and-coming neighborhoods, so I'm told. But today I really wanted to dive in and talk to her a bit about her process, her bit practice, and also sort of how she's grown it and a whole bunch of other stuff. So without any further ado, Sacha, are you there?
Hello, how are you?
I'm extremely well. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Hi, everyone.
Look, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining me on this, because I know you've been busy, quite busy recently, right?
Yes, indeed.
I think you mentioned
everyone has. There's so many clients at the moment, not enough advisors to service them. So
yeah, I think I read some numbers around it, and I think 40% down since it began, and it's more to come. It's a bit of a shocker, but this is one of those ones where I'm just like, we could start anywhere and end anywhere, and we keep going. So I'm gonna try and sort of get as much as I possibly can out in the hour, but in the unlikely event that sort of people don't know sort of who you are, they don't know anything about you, they don't know anything about Burcheart, can you give us a bit of an overview of kind of what the business is all about, who you work with, and kind of how it works in the background?
Sure, no problem. So I started Burcheart in 2014. I've had my own business since 2011, but I was contracting to other advice practices. And then I made the decision as, well, why am I doing this for everyone else when I could be doing it for myself? So I started the journey just thinking that at that time I'd have a small pocket of clients and be able to drive my kindergarten daughter to school every day, drop her off, and have that really relaxing lifestyle. fast forward, rapid growth stage. I didn't get to drop her to school that often, but that's okay. I still cook her dinner every night. So she's now in year 7, so she gets herself to school because she's a fully equipped teenager. But yeah, it's been quite the journey. But my goal, obviously, since I started, was to educate people in the advice process. We get so caught up in the jargon of life.
Yeah.
Sometimes we forget that we do this every single day. So I'm a very pictures driven person. Even when my husband wanted to renovate our house, I'm like, you got to draw it for me, otherwise. So I draw pictures to my clients. I tell stories. I give advice through stories, and that's worked really well for us.
Was your intention always from the beginning to be an advisor, or did you kind of just fall into that direction through circumstance?
Yeah, that's a good question. I got into the superannuation industry back in, I'm going to give away my age now, in the late 90s. And I worked in quite a few advice practices and then some big superannuation companies. And then I thought at the time, advice industry, and I did all my study back then as well, that it was boring. You know, I wanted to be in sales, marketing, advertising, and then I studied marketing and I worked in a marketing firm for quite some time. I got sick in my early 20s and was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. So my kind of career took a very big stop for a couple of years whilst I recovered. And in that time, my father used to be an insurance broker, so the boys were covered, but the girls weren't. So my brother was a snowboarder, and the girls were ballet dancers and actors. And so, the boys are fine, but I was the one that got leukemia. So at that time, so it's been quite the journey, and I'm a big advocate for risk and not to over-insure, but just to give people the what if. So that was one big thing. And another thing is I come from a divorced family, and it was a very messy divorce, and my mum walked away with nothing. And a lot of women sometimes, and sometimes men, because sometimes women are now the money earners of the family, or they pay all the bills. So it's that education piece to bring the whole family involved into what's happening, so you can make those kind of decisions together rather than just going, oh no, my husband does that, or my wife does that.
It's funny because that must give you a very strong perspective on what it's like to go through that kind of life-changing thing, not to mention when things break. I'm the same. My parents divorced quite messily. And they're like, one of the things that's driven me has been, I know that when businesses are done well, they can provide financial rewards for people, but when they're not, the opposite happens. It can often lead to sort of breakup and everything. So it kind of gives you perspective. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not even in terms of breakup. It could be business relationships with partners and stuff. So structure is key. So it's all about that education piece on why structure is so important in your everyday life, but also in your business or your employee life.
So I'm getting a sense that you kind of started outside the industry, you've done the marketing piece, and then you've come kind of closer to the advice. But I mean, was your intention always to be a business owner? Was that something you really wanted to do?
No.
Or did you just...
No, absolutely not. I knew I wanted more. After I got well, I got back into marketing and then I met my husband and I kept falling into marketing jobs, and he was a pilot and fairly busy, and we were living South Coast for a long time. And then when we moved back to Sydney, or he got posted to Sydney because he was defence at the time, I was like, I want to do something more. I had Misha. I went back into the world of marketing and corporate marketing, so big corporate business. And, you know, I don't know, but for me, my experience wasn't so great. They wouldn't let me come back part-time after having me. Couldn't find childcare in Sydney because you've got to have your name on the list before you even think about having a baby. So these are the types of things that kind of had lots of road stops for me. And my stepmom had to step aside to take some time off work to help look after Misha whilst I worked. So in that time, I went back to study and went, well, what do I want to do? And I always knew I wanted to help people. And I wasn't going to start training to be a doctor, that's for sure. And I am good with numbers. And when I look back at all my roles in marketing, I was always the one to do the accounts or the financials or anything of any of the businesses that I worked in. So that financial kind of realm kind of always was a high point, and it was just helping people understand that and what that looks like. So I decided to create Burcheart. I never thought it would go to where it is today. I don't think anyone ever thinks with the end in mind. And it has been an evolving process. My team laugh because I'm constantly changing things because that's the way my brain works. I've always been strategy first, process driven, service everything later. So it's always, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and say, oh my gosh, halfway through a statement of advice, we could do this. And then go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, it's I'm a bit of a tinkerer, and the problem is I sometimes have to. Jen's actually really good at it, and she's Brit, as I guess your team would be. She has to stop it and go, "That's a great idea, but let's park it over there and let's revisit it." And sometimes you come back to it 3 months later, and it's like, "Oh, I don't like that anymore," which is a good thing. So Burcheart is a derivative of your name, correct? Or
yes. So I did a rebrand a couple of years in. So I started the business, and it was called Specialized Advice, because that's what I believed I did. I gave people specialized advice, and a lot of SMSF strategies and so forth.
Right.
Over time, I met a marketing lady, and she's like, "No, Sacha, that's boring." I'm like, "Okay, well, do a rebrand." And she put a couple of different names. I'm like, I'm not changing the name. And then she put Burcheart in front of me. And Burcheart is the way you actually pronounce my surname.
Okay.
Burchgart is how it sounds or is spelt, and that is my name. And then my marketing said, well, how about we change the Gart to Heart? So, so then my licensee changed my name. By default, some of the insurance companies changed my name. So it's been a little bit of a disaster. People will try to search Sacha Burchgart, but spell it Burcheart, register, and then I don't exist. So then there's that, are you really an advisor? So yes, I do. The whole premise of the name change was, well, I can create a brand rather than just a book of business. So let's brand. And then it was, okay, well, what do you do? And I put my heart and soul into every single one of my clients. What happens to them personally affects me. And they all would say the same, especially the key clients that we work with day to day. So Burcheart was born, and and it's still challenging with banks and getting my email address right. You say, can you send? I haven't got the email yet. So,
well, I was writing down. I was like, oh, there's a G in there. And then I had to, do I drop an E or do I drop but I got there.
And then the organ, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's like, is it Bert? Yeah, but I got there in the end. Yeah. So let's talk about the business, because the way you give advice is kind of, when we were talking through what we were going to talk about, a few things came up. It was firstly the way that you use modeling and numbers. It's almost religiously, and more specifically cash flow. And this process that you've developed for really making the strategy paper such a massive part of it, not to mention there's a whole bunch of stuff flying around the edge. So what I wanted to start off by, have you always given advice in this way? And if not, when did it start to form?
So no, I haven't. So when we started, you all go down the same channel. You meet a client, you provide them, you fill out the fact find, and then the next time they come back to you, you're presenting them with a statement of advice. And it's very meet, advice, deliver, meet, advice, deliver.
Yep.
I would get through halfway through a statement of advice and eyes would be going over, eyes would glaze over, because obviously they're long-winded documents that have a lot of jargon in them.
Yep.
And I would like to give clients choice. So what if you did this, or what if you did this, or this is what you came to me for, but if we restructure it this way, this is the difference. And that really doesn't work in the statement of advice world, because then the document ends up being 6,000 pages as opposed to 50 in my licensee. They've got shorter now, depending on the advice. But it got to the stage where I kept having to go back to the team and say, no, we need to rewrite this now because we're going to go this, this, and this. So I started saying, look, I would like to do another meeting pre-advice to just kind of work out the strategies, but in a more granular fashion. So I find if someone tells me what to do, I'm more like, well, I kind of have my own ideas. I'm going to do that. And then will I buy into what someone tells me to do when I've already had a pretty strong feeling about what I want to do anyway? So we live in a society where you get advice on everything, when you should start having babies. I think we talked about that earlier, or when you should get married, or when you should settle down, or, you get these little pockets of advice. And then that flows through to pockets of advice from the guy on the bus, the guy at the barbecue. You should do this. Oh, no, I've got my super with here. No, I'm doing really well. You should do this. So there's all of these advice things flying around across the edge. So clients come to you, and not all, but a lot do, and say, oh, look, this is what I've been told to do, or this is what my friends do. This is what my mum and dad, this is my money story, this is this. And I feel that I need to give them the choice. Okay, well, this is the way you should do it, but is there a better way, or is there an alternative, or is this going to make you okay? So I started this to cash flow that out. So this is what you came to me for. This is what the likely outcome may be. Yeah. But what if we did this? Or what if we did this? And then, okay, well, what if we do a combination of both? Okay. So yes, there's a lot more, as we talked, it's a lot more high touch, because a lot of outsourced paraplanners, which we've struggled with over the years, struggle to do that, because they'll come back and say, yeah, but why would we do that? That's not going to work for them. It puts them in a worse situation. But clients don't know that. Yes, we do that work in the background, but they don't know that. They can't see that.
So let me play it back to you, make sure I've got it the right way. So if I come to you and I'm like, okay, I want to pay for giant swans we put in my backyard. That's been my home dream. And on top of that, I want to move all of my memorabilia that's hanging on my wall in my garage. I want to move it into, into the self. And I'll give you all of these things. You're going to go, okay, I'll go away. I'm going to model that, and I'm going to come and put it in front of you. And then I'm going to show you the consequences of what you're talking about, without any judgment, without any. Yeah. Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, well, if
that's extreme, but
if that is extreme, if someone wants to put memorabilia in their SMS, I'll say, well, you can't really
you can't do that. Just take it off the walls. Yeah.
So rule stuff, I'll say, look, that's, you can't buy a lifestyle property and use it in your SMSF, that you can't rent it to your daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of stuff I wouldn't bother modeling out. I'll just say, look, these are the rules. But it's simple stuff like, I'm going to put all my money into my mortgage and pay that off first, and I'm not going to do any other strategies. So I'll go, this is how much interest you're going to save, and this is how much time you're going to shave off your mortgage. And this is very basic vanilla type stuff. And then the next one I'll go, okay, well, what if you put all that money into super instead? This is how long it'll take to pay your mortgage off, and this is potentially how much you'll grow your retirement. Or what if we do a portion of both? And if you do, and then this was very basic stuff at the beginning with kind of lower net wealth clients. Well, what does that look like? Clients then can see, okay, well, yes, I'm going to pay my mortgage off in 8 years as opposed to 26 years. Okay. I'm going to save $270,000 in interest. Or then we would go, well, look, if you do a combination of both, you're still going to pay off your mortgage in around 13 years. But you're also going to give yourself this much more in retirement potentially, which means you close that gap a lot faster by doing a multiple strategy. So that's at a very basic type strategy level.
Yep.
Some clients want to should I invest in property? Should I buy new versus existing? Should I develop? Should I go into the share market? It is a very what if type scenario.
So the obvious, I mean, first I want to go back because I'm going to guess the way you started off doing it was way less efficient than what you're doing right now. There's probably, there would have been technology wasn't there, the paper, we'll go back to that. But I mean, as a process, that must be quite time intensive.
Yes.
Okay. And how is that? And you've just accepted that that's part of the process, or how do you make sure? Right. So what are the things you do? Charge. What are the things that you got to make sure are in place before you get to that point with somebody, right? Because I imagine there's a couple of hurdles you want to get past before you're going to sit down and do that for someone.
We structure our advice in 3 areas:
right.
the strategy, the advice, and then the ongoing if required. So clients know when they sign on their engagement with us, they know they're embarking upon a strategy first, and that's probably, and I explain to them in our introduction meeting, that's where we do most of our work. So it will include their current situation in detail and what their life looks like or may look like if they don't move forward now and they stay doing what they're doing. because we want to tell clients, where they are and if they're okay, because everyone doesn't know exactly where they are. They've got lots of balls in the air. And then secondly, we want to give us, it's kind of like our anchor starting position for us. So every time we review a client, we can show them how far they've come from their current position. So it's really nice. We use it as a tool. It's a bit of a scary tool because you've got to put your value, if you're not moving forward with a client and helping them grow their wealth, or if they're not on the journey with you, you can see fairly quickly if they're not following that type of roadmap. And then, so we would then present the last half of the document, is all the strategies that they want to do just in standalone. So if they want to pay for their kids' education, well, how do they do that? What's it going to cost? Is it a savings plan? Is it a bond? And there's no product recommendations in this strategy. You may be able to do an education strategy. So we've got it all approved by licensee land and so forth. Then the second half of the document, we go through all the different things, and at the very back, we do a potential post-implementation cash flow. So if they did all their high priority things, and sometimes even their medium priority things, are they in the red or are they in the green? What's it going to cost? We do a risk analysis as well, worst case scenario. And I say, it's not because I'm trying to cover you for everything. It's just that if something does happen, I want you to know you've considered everything and you know what the steps are if one of you can't work or if one of you passes away. So they love this document because once they leave, they know everything bad, if they're okay, what they need to shave back on, and they get a really clear understanding of why their cash flow is so important.
Right. Is it onerous to get the information off people, get them? Because what percentage of people actually do a budget, would you say?
Oh, hardly any.
Okay.
And to get high level, some people are really good. And I have a lot of clients who can just go, I've got an Excel spreadsheet on that. So there are some people that are very good with doing that. We've actually started we're implementing a new service where we just get 3 months of statements for every single credit card and bank account they have in Excel, and we can model it into some type of spending. But that's not included in this at all. But generally, if you ask clients, look, well, what do you pay on your gas, electricity and water? They'll have a rough idea. And we're not asking for absolute, because things change. You may spend more some weeks at the groceries. You may spend less. You might go out for dinner more weeks. So as long as we've got an average, people know if they're going to have if they've got $10,000 left over at the month, or if they're living month to month. People generally know that. It's when they go, we've got it, but we don't have this amount of money every year. We roughly have that, but I should have 70,000 stuck in my offset account by this point, and I don't. So that's a little bit of a wake-up call for clients. And that's what we base the rest of the document on. So it's really important that we get that number up front. Otherwise, we're wasting so much time building these strategies because they're all cash flow driven.
Some of the banks are getting really good at Westpac. Have recently, I don't know if you bank with Westpac, but I do. And some of their reporting coming off the back of it is now starting to get pretty good. It kind of, all bets are off for people who've got multiple banks now. That's the problem, right? There's no reconciliation.
But CSV file, I've done this for Brendan and I recently, because we went and had a lovely holiday the first time in years, and then you get back and you're like, well, gosh, how much are we spending? The cost of living, everything's going up. What are we spending? And it is actually, when you've got business accounts and personal accounts and so forth, it's a tedious exercise. But,
it is. But it's useful. And I think it's funny because with the pandemic, I almost feel like it's something that people haven't had to think about as much, because and now it's kind of like, we can't go nuts on that. People
forget that they can just tap on everything with their pay card, and then that's not really included. Like when Brendan and I met, we put all our money together. Everything went into the joint account, but then we would pay each other an allowance, and that's what we did. And when your allowance ran down, you kind of overspent, but people can't do that now with the tax. So it's all about getting that bucket strategy right and making
the bucket strategy is the best. I use it for my business. I use it for my personal stuff, and because ultimately, if you're having to transfer money out, to say, okay, there's it's such a good system. I love it. I'm going to ask you about when you started off the technology, but one thing I wanted to ask is people who've gone down the strategy paper route, one of the pieces of hurdles they have to get over is convincing their compliance oversights that it's not advice. Did you have that problem, or were they on board from the beginning?
They gave us 2 tips. So we gave the strategy paper, and as long as it doesn't have any product named mentioned, and when we do say a super comparison, for instance, and we'll compare every super fund that comes to us. So in our strategy paper, it'll have their current super with their current risk profile, and we'll compare apples with apples in that stage. You've got to do it the other way anyway. And we've had pretty much 99.9% success rate of getting a client from a strategy to SOA.
Yep.
So we cash flow that out anyway, and then we compare it against 2 other, a retail fund, an industry fund, and depending on balance and their goals, potentially an SMSF from a fee structure. And then we also do performance, and then we break down what that performance, what their kind of asset allocation is. So obviously your asset allocation is this, which is either in line or not in line with your risk profile. Right. And we compared it against one, like for our retirement, like we'll have one that are tailored around reducing sequencing risk and so forth. So we try to give them as much, because it's very hard to compare apples with apples in this world, and it's getting harder and harder and harder. Because no fund is alike, no investment portfolio is alike, and no insurance product is alike. So the apples for apples is really apples and pears or apples and bananas. It doesn't exist. Unless
you're the industry super fund advertising, you can get away with anything, right?
That's right.
I was going to ask you actually, when it's interesting because your model is very much about setting the goal and then deciding what needs to happen personally, how much you need to save, what.
That's right.
And then you've got risk profiling, which is based on a bunch of questions that seek to put you in backed by nothing. How do you pull those 2 together? Because ultimately, like if I've got big dreams, but I'm a conservative investor, but I need to shift upwards, how does that work in your world? How do you correlate those 2?
I use the Vanguard chart a lot in work because it's a great chart to explain risk and return and markets over the last 30 years. And it also draws into what's happened in those last 30 years. So the last 10 months have been crazy in all types of markets. So clients know that. But if we look back at the last 30 years, you can still see growth. If we look short term, we can't. So it really depends. I'm big on with clients about capacity, risk capacity. So not just their capacity to take risk, which is their sleeping, them being able to sleep at night and not panic, but it's their time in market, and it's also, what is that money going to be used for? Is it going to be used to buy your home? Or is it going to be used to buy an investment property? Is it just sitting there to grow your wealth? So if it's sitting there to grow your wealth, we've got a long-term risk capacity. If markets go all over the place like they've been bouncing around now, we've got time in market. If we're closer to retirement, we would potentially have in retirement, would have a bucket strategy approach inside of that fund as well. So what that would look like is 2 years times income protected, so they don't have to panic. They've got some time for markets to recover, and then we'll have the CPI to cover inflation over the next bucket, and then we'll have some growth assets to obviously grow their wealth.
Gotcha.
So it depends on client. It's all very client focused and education focused. So I spend a lot of time. I used to hate filling out risk tolerance questionnaires, but now we've got lots of little pictures about growth and risk and what's happened in the market. Everyone thinks 2020 when COVID hit was a terrible year, but if you actually look on paper, this year's been different. And then obviously the GFC, but they can see the recovery rates. They can see what's happened in all the best and worst years over the last 20 or 30 years. And, the markets are still better, property is still better than cash. So, some people have still got their money in cash from the GFC because they're so scared of investing.
Yeah. Which just goes to show you how much this sort of stuff is driven by people's perception on this thing.
Yeah, fear and...
Well, you can see it in the media now, right? I mean, like I remember when the pandemic hit and it was like, and then everyone was like, oh, it's going to be fine. And it's almost like they've just saved it up for this year and everybody's like, I feel like sometimes we're talking ourselves onto the ledge sometimes.
Yeah, I do.
Let's talk about technology, because I imagine this process has to be enabled by technology at some level. How has the technology footprint of this evolved?
Yeah, so technology's probably been our biggest hurdle, like many businesses. Last year, we did an analysis of how much we're actually spending on our tech, because different things different programs do different things well.
We've
never been able to find something that compares to X Tools Plus from a cash flow modeling tool, and also to get your paraplanners buy-in as well. So Xplan is very expensive for small practices to do well, especially if you're going to have a login per advisor and then wealth solver, risk researcher, and Xtools Plus. It's a very expensive exercise. So we use part of Xplan. We've used Astute Wheel. We've used different CRM tools to bring in information, and then we would have different systems. So it was very hard to find out what our source of truth was. So we used Work Sorted, which is a brilliant system, rate it really, really highly. But we found that we were spending like $67,000 a year on our tech stack.
Wow, that's a big
chunk. Yeah, for a small business, it's a lot of money. And then when you reverse engineer that and say, okay, well, what products do it well? And then I put it in my team's hands, because if you don't get paraplanner buy-in on a system, you get pushback. So we were going down one road prior to me going on holidays, and I was ready to sign up because I was a little bit, we just need to make a move. I need to cut costs. And they trialed the system whilst I was on holidays, and they realised that they didn't like it so much, but they didn't want me to come back from holidays with not a solution. I'm not a scary person, I promise. The team looked at some other, so Larry, my senior paraplanner, looked at some other systems, got some demos, trialled it whilst I was away, and then when I came back, he said, look, this is what didn't work well, and it won't work in with our structure on how we do business, but I found this would. I've trialed it. Let's trial it a bit longer. And then we've now implemented over the last 2 months, and we are loving it. It is already saving so much time. We've built all our templates where we've from SOAs to ROAs, all our workflows across the practice. You can't really do in any software system in a couple of 2 months. So we're pretty excited about that. And soon we'll have a lot of our strategy paper coded into the software as well.
Wow.
So that will just be mind-blowing.
So we've talked a lot about software, and as you mentioned, it's been a bit of a bugbear. Do you feel like it's changing? And if so, why do you think it's changing? Or do you think it's not improving at all?
I think it's changing. Xplan has been the dominant market player for all things.
60% market share
Yeah. And it's clunky, and I get it. It's a legacy type product, and they keep adding stuff. But it is, at the sole advice practice, really, really hard to use. To do it well, you have to get external help to build threads or code documents and so forth.
Or have an internal specialist who knows.
Or pay for an internal specialist. And the threads get stuck with one person, and then it's missed in a workflow and all that stuff. So there's things that, and then you can't just quickly jump in to change that, because you need someone who's a specialist to jump in and change something that's not working. I'm very big on the whole team knowing the process. And so we now mandate every quarter we go out of office, spend a day in either a hired office. The last couple of times we've used the TAL boardroom, and we just have the whole team there, and we're setting up processes, we're writing letters. So we're doing it as a group on a full day, and that's what we do. So because we found we would have a day going, let's get this and this and this, and then we'd go back. But
nothing happens.
We'd be inundated by work. So we'd maybe tick off one or two things. Whereas this way we're ticking off, like when we last did it, we ticked off all our annual agreements, all our engagement offers, all our price pointing. So once a client has had that, the 15-minute introduction, then the discovery meeting with me, as soon as that meeting goes, the engagement will go out with what their level of service will be for the cost of the strategy, advice, and potential ongoing.
When we talk about systems, because what's becoming obvious, I kind of knew, but I'm getting even more a sense now that you're very systems orientated, very systemic. Who builds most of the systems in your business now? Are you involved in this, or is it mainly others?
It's quite funny. I keep telling my team they're trying to make me redundant because Karen, who's in client service and also power planning, she's just taken a hold of the process and is the process queen, we call her. And she loves it. She's like, don't touch my process, but she explains it all. Then she'll bring it down for us. And then she'll go, look, this goes to you, but it doesn't stop. Because if everything goes into my inbox and I'm with a client, then it stops.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it's just a reminder for you to invoice them. It's not a reminder for anything else. Everything else is happening in the back end, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
And then we have every Monday we have a meeting, so we can export everything from our system, and then we've got drop-down lists. So everything that's in strategy phase, prospect phase, statement of advice stage, implementation stage, invoice stage. We can see it at paraplanner level. So we've got 1, 2, 3 paraplanners, 2 client services, and a back office support as well. Yeah. So we all know at a high level what's in everyone's workflow, but then we also know at a granular level who's been assigned to what.
Yeah.
And nothing can get missed. And they joke, they're like, Sacha, nothing needs to touch you, but we've got a few bugs in the system, so you don't get rid of us because, we know how to fix the system. So it's really good. I think that this is the best time we've ever implemented new software. And I think we've had such success with it is because I've put it in the team's hand to build what they want to get the most out of their role.
I have this view that if you build a workflow system that's dependent on advisors or anybody whose role is not, sitting in front of the computer most of the time to go in and mark off tasks, it's going to fail because ultimately, that means that there is the sandbag. There's the thing that's breaking it. And I think, I think you're spot on, which is get the team to do the driving, get them to use the system to drive you, not the other way around. And
my big thing is what's not working well and what's not working well that's not detrimental to the success of the software. What are the little bugbears that you find? And we have a list, and, we will write to the software provider and say, is this going to be fixed? It would be good if the system did this or this or this. So we have our wish list, and they'll tell us when it's going to be added to the pipeline, if it's something they can do, or if it's something they have to do from a kind of compliance level, or we'll find a solution. So we're very solutions based. So there's some things that don't work well with the system at the moment, and there's one thing we've found that we need to do a workaround for, and we found a workaround. So I'm very big. Don't come to me with this is terrible. We should just go back to the old way of doing things. What's terrible?
For
how
sure.
do we fix it, and what's the solution?
I love it.
And
is everybody in your team a systems thinker?
Yes.
And is that a deliberate hiring strategy, or does it just happen that way?
I think it's happened that way. I think we give people a lot of leeway because I like people to be able to come out of their shell and find what they love. So I'm very big on progressing people through business. So, when Danny, who's my associate advisor now, when she joined me, she came from she was a risk-only paraplanner, and then she joined me, and I've thrown her into SMSF world, strategy world. And when you get stuck in that world, especially with me, who's high level and she's detailed, you either sink or swim, right? You either work really well together. So Danny's been with me for 7 years. And then when I hired Larry, I got a resume after I had hired someone else, and I was like, oh, this guy looks really cool. So it was a gamble, I was putting myself out on the limb, but and he is just, he's gone from being a paraplanner to my senior paraplanner and my investment specialist. And so Danny's gone from risk only to full paraplanner to associate advisor.
That's awesome.
Larry will do his professional year. Taryn, when she joined, she's done her advice study, but she's like, I don't know if I want to be in the industry. So she was just office support. Then she's moved to junior paraplanner and now client services admin. So it's a real big start and learn absolutely every process in the business.
Yeah.
So And like I went overseas for a month earlier this year, and it's the first holiday I've had in 8 years where I didn't have to do anything for work other than pay the team. So that in itself was huge.
Would you say the reason you're able to do that is because of the systems and because you've got the team who understand how systems work as part of it? So, I mean, actually, let me ask this question first. Before we get too far into the systems, the strategy paper piece.
Yes.
If you've got businesses out there who are not doing that, or maybe, you know, sometimes I talk to them about that and they say, but why would I do that? I can just go straight to SOA or whatever it might be. What would you say are the benefits? And I know you've always done this. What do you say the benefits are for you personally in your enjoyment of the process by doing it that way? And then secondly, what would you say are the benefits to the business that you wouldn't have if you didn't do it that way?
Sure. The benefits to the client, I think, are it's a big educational piece. They walk out of a meeting either sometimes a little bit overwhelmed because some of the documents are quite big. It's their whole world and what their world could look like in a document. So they go home with a lot of things to consider if I do it one way or do it another way, or, you know, and we get very particular, like very granular in terms of, you know, like this is private school, this is what it's going to potentially cost. And, you know, like we've had clients ask us to plan in when they have their baby around vesting schedules, you know. So a lot of things are time driven and cash flow driven. So it's been great because clients get the education piece, which ticks the box of me helping them understand their world rather than a statement of advice, which unfortunately over time we as an industry or compliance has made it that much more not user-friendly. So my strategy is very user-friendly, very picture-driven, follow the bouncing ball. So they feel like they're walking away going, oh my God, I'm actually okay, or I'm really excited about the next steps. When can we start? So that's helped me immensely because it gets client buy-in, and it feels to me that I'm giving back to the industry. Where it's helped business, it has taken a while. We charge a bigger fee for these strategy documents because they're great, and then we also charge for a statement of advice document. And the statement of advice is not as expensive as the strategy paper. So
the strategy papers cost more?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
Well, a lot of the work's done for the advice document at the end of the day.
Yeah.
We've compared products, we've done all that. So we're just taking away the things we're not doing, tweaking some things if numbers are changing, and then throwing it in. When
you started to do that, did you have any sort of concern? Oh, how's this going to go down?
Yeah, I remember going to a FINIA conference one year, and we had someone speak at an event, and I was like, and I've always built my business on revenue streams. So from the day I started, when I went in 2014, I had been contracting to other practices. So I didn't take one client with me. So I started my business from scratch with no ongoing revenue. So it's all new business or die. So I was very particular about revenue streams. I don't always want to focus on new business risk. So I had to charge for advice. I had to charge I had to earn commissions, and I had to charge, moving forward. So we do a lot of SMSF, and we outsource our SMSF administration. So I've always had these revenue streams.
As in multiple revenue streams.
Multiple revenue streams. Got it. And, you know, every time I do my business planning now, each and every year, I'm like, okay, well, what is each revenue stream worth to me? And then I work out, well, how much time are we spending on each revenue stream? So we spend more time on the strategy side of the revenue stream than anything else. So we charge for that, and we charge accordingly. We're a referral-based only business, and what that means is we get clients at all different levels. And because we're such a bespoke service, it was taking so much time costing out what advice would look like for people. But now we've come up with a really good model in terms of people who are just starting out versus people who want SMSFs and SMEs and trusts and those kind of structures. But it's also provides now a model where a lot of my team will move up to that advisor space at some point because they know the Burcheart methodology. So it means that when they do start providing work, or being an advisor, they can start at the not the lower end clients, but the easier type strategies and price points to build them up to the really high net worth clients.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions coming. I've just noticed. Okay, everybody wants to know the software provider. I know we haven't mentioned the name. Do you want to take it offline and people want to know they can email you, or did you want to pop it on?
I don't mind. We're now using Plutosoft. We're not under any agreements. We'd like to not. I mean, they'd love us if you all joined Plutosoft. Just say Burcheart, and then they'll get all our things done faster.
Yeah, Greg makes the point. He said, look, he wants to know the CRM system. There's so much overwhelming confusion in this space. And I want to add to that, Greg, like when Sacha told me she was going to Plutosoft, I've had a business that tried it and didn't work for them. Whereas this software system works really well for you. So I think getting the name of what's out there that people might not be aware of is really good, but also making sure that you're adopting something that works for you is really key, because what is sugar for one business can be poison for another.
And I'll disclaimer that and say, if it was just me building the software, I would probably be having a really terrible experience because I'm too high level for that. Whereas my team have just embraced it and they're getting all the stuff that their bugbears that they want to their jobs done easier. So I think that's you've got to make sure you get your team buy-in to whatever system that you're going to use. That's crucial in making it successful.
Tyson was asked, what's the strategy paper look like?
It's big, very user-friendly. I think it looks beautiful. It's divided into 2 sections, generally 3, and there's a lot of, there could be some charts in the back with current and proposed. It really looks like a mini SOA, but more user-friendly. There's no jargon. There's no all big scary what you're going to consider and so forth. It's, if it's property, there'll be a picture of a property and there'll be cash flow, what the stamp duty looks like, what's deductible, what's not deductible, lots of pictures.
How do you bind it? I know it's a really weird question. Do you do heat binding or?
No, not really. We do have a binder in the office. I hate it. I vow I'll never bind another document again because I always stuff it up. But since we've had Zoom, a lot of clients will do their stuff on Zoom. So it's now. And a lot of people I've had ideas to get it on little zip drives and stuff. And the good thing about Zoom, it's kind of changed things. But I mean, I'm going into the office this afternoon and presenting a really big strategy paper, and that's being bound by the team, not me. So, have
you ever been tempted to do it as a PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, I have.
I thought you would have.
Yeah, we did start doing that. It's just way too, the files are way too large.
Yeah, PowerPoint's a beast, isn't it?
Yeah.
I want to ask, actually, we've spoken about the benefits of doing it the way you do to the clients to you. What are the things that if a business is going, okay, I'm going to start doing strategy papers, what are the things that you absolutely need to have in place? Otherwise, it's not going to work.
You've got to be focused on cash flow because a lot of the strategies are driven on surplus incomes. And what I try to tell my team is clients come to us for a certain goal or requirement. We can't then just throw it into a document that has the same format that says, this is risk, and by the way, you said you wanted to do this, and that's at the back of the document. Yeah. So I'm very big on give the client what they want, what they came to us for, even if it's not right up front, this is what it's going to look like. So you're going to be in the red.
This kind of answers Tyson's question. He was like, is it scenarios or recommendations? It sounds like it's scenarios.
Yeah, it's scenarios. So you've come to us and we've seen that you've got this is your current cash flow. You should have around about $15,000 a month left over to spend. This is your current asset base. This is your liabilities. This is your net wealth. And then the system now, when they log into the client portal, will have their net wealth. And then every year we show them how much that net wealth has grown. From there, it's got their properties, and then I have CoreLogic, so we do desktop valuations on property to see potential equity left in properties, because a lot of clients do come to us for property cash flow work. So we show them their equity position, and then we go to you said you wanted to buy an investment property or buy a principal place. This is your current savings. This is the equity. This is a potential strategy if you got the serviceability, and this is what the loan may look like. Repayments at this rate. Then we stress test the repayments, especially in this market with rising interest rates. And then we go, well, look, you're in the red, so you either need to save for longer or we need to come up with a different strategy.
Got it. Rachel wants to know, how long does it take your team to prepare the strategy paper? Are you just using the Pluralsoft for this or using other systems?
So Excel, we start everything from Excel, and that's where we do a lot of our calculations. Clients now enter their own information into Pluralsoft, which is great. So we give them a client login, they log in all their assets, liabilities, and that will flow through to every strategy. So we use Pluralsoft.
Just to confirm, Pluralsoft has a built-in portal, doesn't it?
It does.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, it does. So, and then you've got your built-in portal for everyone to fill out their fact find. But if for all our ongoing, we pay for the premium portal, and that has all their modelling on there as well that they can look through.
I honestly think that'll be that when that catches on in a big way, that'll be the end of SOS. Why do you need it? Daniel White, how do you deal with super in a strategy paper? And his point, I don't know whether you're in the same licensee. Compliance generally says if you mention super, it's product, so it's an SOA.
Yeah, so we just say this is your super, this is your risk analysis, this is how much it's costing you, your binding nominations are, you've got unitized cover and decreasing, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
If we've compared that against other funds and you may be able to get a cheaper rate and these are the performance and these are, or if you wanted to go retail, this is what it looks like. Or if you want to go SMSF, this is what it may look like. So there's lots of mays. There's no product names on what companies they're going to go to at all. It's just this. We've compared it against 2 retail funds. We've got retail 1 fund, retail 2 fund. We know what they are because they can change depending on the client. And then we've got 2 industry funds on our APL, so we can also compare against those 2 industry funds without actually telling you who they are. But I can look at the fees and know who they are.
So no mention of Host Plus Super anywhere?
No.
I'm going to ask a couple more questions. I'm very mindful of time, and I know you'll have a busy day behind you, in front of you. I wanted to ask about this. Obviously, is a very time intensive,
yes.
And I know you're a very personable person, so therefore I imagine you have a very strong relationship. What are you doing over the next few years? Where are you taking the business in terms of trying to alleviate some of that, if you are?
Yeah, so software is a big thing on our list to get the software right, and the education. I mean, once you know the strategies that you build, we've got fairly good templates. So it really is, you put that in the document and you fill out the areas and it's all cash flowed out through the modelling. So it's a lot easier to put together now. We get thrown curveballs a lot with clients. We have a lot of expat clients. We have a lot of US citizens, so we've got to take into effect death taxes and stuff as well. Vesting schedules. So every time we have something new, if we spend a lot of work working on a strategy with that, it joins that strategy template of potential strategies that may come into our world at any certain time. So we don't have to always reinvent the wheel. We loom so if we're going through a strategy and new people are joining, we loom it. So we're having a bit of a data bank of what stuff. We ask tech people all the time, CFS Tech and our licensee in strategy. We find different products that aren't on our APL that are best interest for client, and then we fight to get them added as a blanket or
Fair enough.
on the list. If it's in a client's best interest, we will move mountains to get it done. And yes, we do a lot of research and we try to explain to our clients what does that look like. So we're very hands-on, saying we've spoken to all these fund managers or all these platforms or all these people in the last month. This is what some of your ongoing fees go for, because it's not just about what they see at the end of the day. It's what happens behind the scenes, and everyone's been impacted in the last 10 months some way or another.
So I'm going to read between the lines and go, this is not a business. This is not a model that you can run at anything other than a premium price. It's a premium service. It's a premium advice. It costs premium prices, and it works because of that. Yeah.
And clients buy in because they've got that relationship and they know my team. It's like, if you've got an investment question you can't get to me, you ring Larry. If you've got questions about this, you call Olivia, the office manager, or Tara. So it's very personable.
Yeah.
It's building a family network rather than just, a service.
Would you be willing to say what you charge as a range for the strategy paper? You don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah, no. So depending on level, so minimum costs for strategy advice at the very bottom end is around about $3,500, and at the top end is about 10.
Still pretty reasonable, I think. Okay, penultimate question. How do you feel about where the industry's going? Is there anything that keeps you up at night, or are you generally pretty excited about things? What do you think we've got ahead of us?
I'm actually quite confident and very excited about where the industry is heading, which is kind of strange because I was a little bit scared with the new government coming in. I think it's really positive at the moment. I hope, I've done all the education standard and FASEA and all that, and, I'm 100% over the media. It drives a lot of fear in this country, and it's something that you can't change, but I just wish they'd focus on them for a while rather than give the industry a bit of a chance to catch up, because what I've found since COVID is but before COVID, I was deep in uni, deep in FASEA study, deep in all that kind of stuff, all the new system requirements and compliance. Running a business was crap. But then out of that, and then you've got COVID hits, I felt for the first time in years we're actually sitting there giving clients what they need and they need it. And I think I know for one, we've been running the business ever since then. Just we don't have a moment to put our head up because clients are seeking advice. So I'm excited about that.
It changed everything. It's a weird storm. I mean, I almost forgot about the education. And I know you were doing a uni degree and you're going through this, and then we come out the other side and suddenly the whole attitude towards advice has changed. All these people are motivated, and we're kind of on this journey. The next 2 years are going to be really interesting, I think.
Yeah, I've never had someone fill out their fact find as quick as I have anymore. I think COVID, people working from home, they've got access to their staff.
That's true.
That's
so true.
Yeah, they're buying in and they're not. So I would like to hear more good news stories rather than the doom and gloom all the time. And
Agreed.
That's the industry. I think we all need to start spreading that.
Sasha, if people wanted to learn more about your model, they want to connect with you, or what's the best way, or if there's something you want them to do in order to move their business forward, what would that be?
Yeah, look, I'm a big advocate of this industry, and we all need good advisors, and happy to share what I know to anyone. Reach out on LinkedIn. You've got my website. Sacha at Burcheart is my email address. Just get the spelling right. Otherwise I might not get it. But yeah, I mean, I'm an open book. I'm big in the share space because I think there's too many clients for us all to handle, and I can't handle everyone. So, but yeah, no, happy to share. I know it's quite a journey, and the overwhelm is crazy. So I do understand that.
It is, but you know what? I reckon the people that are still here in the industry and still pushing forward, they're doing it because they're passionate about it, and ultimately they believe that the future is going to be better than the past. And I think if you're still here, I think the rewards are going to start coming sooner. I mean, they're already starting to come, but I think they're coming sooner or later. Daniel said it's good to see a woman doing it so well in advice. Totally agree. Although there's some really great female planners out there and great female entrepreneurs. Do you and Daniel know each other?
Sorry, my dog just decided to come in and say hello. I apologise. Open the door.
How's he going? Is he recovering?
He's better.
Okay, that's good.
Thank you.
Greg says
that question.
No. Daniel said it's just really good to see a woman killing it in advice. Agreed.
Thank you.
Greg says what he's taken from is emphasizing where the value truly is in the strategy, planning, and formulation. Amen to that one. Totally agree. Tyson says, for Brenton and I, at no point does the process stop. I totally agree. Tyson is part of a business that's got an accounting arm, a finance arm, and an advice arm. So I agree with that one. Daniel says that other people are looking into this sort of thing. Seems to be best practice in the industry, probably undercharging. Those two things are absolutely spot on, Daniel. Yeah, you can't run this as a low cost offering. Rachel, building an amazing team, agreed. Getting the best out of them, involving in your whole business, work on your process, and find your tech. I think that's pretty much the summary of the webinar in a sentence. General modeling, Daniel's taken for it. Rachel says she loves the idea of getting the team out of the office to work on processes. I'd love to see the strategy paper. I bet you would. Daniel says he doesn't know Sasha. Sorry, I thought you guys must know. And Elizabeth says, yep, great, girls do it good. Absolutely agree. Anything else you'd like to add, Sasha? This has been absolutely amazing, as I knew it would be.
Yeah, there was only one question I didn't answer that I saw in there a couple of times. How long does a strategy paper take? How long is a piece of string? If they're getting quicker and quicker, Sometimes they take a couple of days. I've spent on a client who has owned his own small business commercial property that's had he bought it for 275,000 and now it's worth 2.8 million. I've worked on that strategy to in specie it to super and stuff. So that was 16 hours of my time, which they pay for. So it really depends on what a client wants. But regular, maybe 6 to 10 hours, depending if your process is right.
Do you lock yourself away for that?
The big stuff I do, and then I get someone always to check my work because my brain thinks really, really fast. So I'm big picture. So if I'm getting really granular with numbers, I'll always get one of my team to make sure I haven't done.
I think the last thing when you've been through and done a piece of work like that is you want to do is go back and check your numbers. It's just exhausting. I get you on that. Sacha, as Rachel said, absolutely awesome. Thank you so much as always. And you have a great weekend and I'll catch up with you soon.
You too. Thanks. See you.
See ya. Bye. There we have another edition of The Finnovator. I hope you got a lot out of that one. I really enjoyed the discussion, you probably gathered. And I just got so much insight into so many areas of what Sacha does. That just impressed me, and just so much good stuff in there. So look, I wanted to put it out there. We're reaching, as I record this, we're getting into November. And it's funny, this time of year for me is the time of the year where a lot of businesses make the mistake of trying to sort of continue to implement their projects all the way up to a week before Christmas or however long before you decide to break. And for me, I like to finish off everybody's projects by about November and do focus on sort of 3 key things this time of year. The first one being end of year marketing, which is without doubt one of the best and easiest ways to generate ROI from your marketing. To debrief the year that was, and equally importantly, set down some tracks for the year ahead. Most businesses I know would agree that coming back to your business and not really getting started with your plan for the year by about March literally means that you've said goodbye to a quarter of the year and puts you on the back foot from day one. To that end, anybody I speak to about the Leverage Advice Firm program, one of the first stages in our journey or our discussions, I sit down with them, and over the course of about 60 minutes, we put together a high-level plan that I call the Leverage Plan. And essentially, this is about mapping out what the ROI for a business might be in working with someone like me over a 12-month period, where we're starting from, and we identify 3 to 4 strategies that they may want to focus down on in the coming 12 months in order to unlock their ROI, which I think is one of the most important things I look for when I'm speaking to a business. They want to see that there's going to be an ROI from working with me, and I want to make sure that if we're working together, we're working on stuff that's going to get the result. If you have considered coaching in the past, if you've been listening to this for a while and you've thought about getting some help, maybe you've had a great year and just want to capitalize on it, or maybe there's certain things you'd like to change in your business in 2023, head over to ourdairy.com.au, check out the Leverage Advice Firm program. And if it sounds like this leverage plan thing sounds like something you'd like to sit down and create, then just book a time. We'll have a bit of a chat. We'll talk a little bit about your business, and then off the back of that, we'll book that session and we'll get one done. I'm going to do 5 or 6 of these before the end of the year, before I sort of lapse into some very well-deserved downtime. So if it sounds like something you would like to do, please head over there, grab some time, and we'll get this show on the road. Other than that, there will be one more Finnovator before the end of the year. But if you've enjoyed the Finnovator this year, feel free to share it. And again, if you know somebody who would make a great guest, or you would like to be a guest on the program, shoot me through an email and we'll take it from there. That's it from me. I'll see you soon.